Good afternoon and welcome to this fourth edition of the EQ Lunch and Learn series. In addition to the painful health challenges far too many people are facing, I know I am not alone in saying 2020 has been brutal in terms of leadership and work. So many of us are feeling tired, and whilst many of us have hope, we are running low on resilience. Understandable. But the hard reality is we have a long way to go and a lot more changes that we will have to reckon with in the coming months and in the coming years. What are some of those changes and how will those affect us as employees and employers? Since we don't have a crystal ball available, today we've asked a remarkable group of panelists to come and share their perspectives on the future of work. Digitalisation and globalisation have sparked radical shifts in the way that we work, and COVID-19 has accelerated that beyond anything we could have imagined, leaving many of us feeling uncertain about what the future holds for us at work. What skills do we need as we look into this unknown? What we do know is that the most important organizational capabilities for the future are the skills that make us different from machines. And at the core of these skills is emotional intelligence. The World Economic Forum has ranked emotional intelligence as one of the top 10 skills needed for the fourth industrial revolution. The McKinsey Group has identified that between now and 2030, the need for social and emotional skills will grow at a much faster pace than the need for cognitive skills. And the Institute for Health and Human Potential has research that indicates that emotional intelligence skills now account for up to 85% of what is required for exceptional performance and leadership. Welcome again to this fourth edition of the EQ Lunch and Learn, and we are going to be talking about the future of work. As I mentioned, I have some awesome panelists with me, and they're going to help me to have this conversation. I'd like to introduce you all to Soila Kenya. Soila Kenya is an award-winning data journalist and fact checker from Nairobi, and she is interested in the environment, in gender and health science reporting. If you would like to learn more about Soila and to connect with her, feel free to visit her website. Soila Kenya, you're so welcome to our session today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
All righty. And with me, I also have Christine Karsina. She's the founder and managing director of Supermars, which is a platform for women who are looking to really grow themselves and their businesses. Really excited to have Christine with us. The platform empowers women, especially moms, to strive to be the best that they can be. If you'd like to connect with Christine or learn more about her, I'm sharing her LinkedIn page and also a link to their YouTube channel. Christine Karsina, you are very welcome to our session today.
Thank you, Mucha.
And last but not least, we do have I'm not sure that I'd call him a thorn amongst the roses, but we do have a gentleman in our midst, and we're very happy to have with us today, Evans Munyori. He is a seasonal HR professional. He is the HR director at Standard Bank in East Africa and Asia. We're very happy to have you with us, Evans. And if you'd like to learn more about this gentleman, again, feel free to connect with him on LinkedIn. We've shared his details. Evans, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much, Mucha, and deeply delighted to be here. And just one point of correction. When you say Standard Bank, you're talking about Stanbic. It is Standard Chartered.
Standard Chartered Bank, my apologies, Standard Chartered Bank. I knew that in my head. I have no idea how it came out the other way, considering the fact that I am actually one of your clients. Thank you very much, Evans, for being with us. I wanted to dive right in. I wanted to dive right in. Welcome to all of you who are tuning in with us, and please feel free to share your comments and any questions that you may have. If you have questions for a specific individual, you're welcome to target your questions to them, or it can be a general question and our panelists will take it up. So first round of questions to all of you. 2020, as I've already mentioned, has been rough. It has not been what we expected when we kicked off the year. But it's not been all bad. What's one way that your own work has changed in 2020 that you want to continue into the future? Christine, let me jump in and ask you to answer first.
Looking back on how 2020 has been, the bulk of what we do at Supermars is organized events. So we thrive where there are people, human interactions, there's that energy. Bring COVID into the works, it's been something very different. So by the time we did our event in February, we had a plan of how, I think we were planning like 6, 7 other events. Of course, that was not going to happen. So how did COVID change the space where we are in? I never thought it was possible to do an event online, which eventually I was able to put together. Can you imagine having a Mother's Day event that is being done online? So in this COVID space, the one thing that I've learned to do is to be able to innovate, find ways to use technology to enhance what we do. And that we were able to do by, of course, bringing a DJ on screen and entertaining the mothers on Mother's Day and doing some giveaways. So it was absolutely fantastic. So the one thing that definitely COVID has taught me right now, and how we are continuing to use, what we're going to do going forward, is to find ways to bring in technology to enhance our events, not take away from our events, but find ways to have technology enhance our events. And then the other thing that we use technology for right now is empowerment. We were very honored at some point. You were one of the people who came through for something we came up with called Self-Care Friday. Bringing moms together, then have conversations that matter, that can continue to build their mental, their mental well-being, which is part of emotional intelligence. So finding ways to do the events and bringing in the online aspect, and then of course doing empowerment by using Zoom and other tools. It's been a good learning session. So it's not been a waste. 2020 has not been a waste for sure.
I love that. 2020 has not been a waste, and you found ways to integrate technology. Evans, what are your thoughts? What's one way that work has changed that you want to hold on to? You don't want to see it go as 2020 comes to an end.
Thanks, Mucha. And I'll tell you, I think just like any human being, and possibly Kenyan, I started off by rejecting this change. I really fought trying to work from home. It's never been an idea for me to explore. I keep telling people, as an institution, we've had a flexible work policy for over 7 years, and nobody really took it seriously until now. Well, a few did. And the tools were there, but the way we are oriented, really for me, it wasn't going to work. Home is home, work is done elsewhere. Looking back many months later, I think that the mindset shift for me has been tremendous. And the two things that I will tell you, for me, the first one, which is key, is the element of trust. I think the fact that we have supervised people or being supervised by individuals on a daily basis and on your face basis has made us lazy and has made us unproductive. Trust for me has worked. I simply now understand that people can be trusted to do what they're supposed to do wherever they are. And that for me is the biggest and key learning, not just for me and even for the team that I work with, So if there's anything else that I would carry beyond the policies, beyond the perspective of doing things differently, the number one thing is trust. And that I will carry along into next year, knowing full well that, individuals and human beings can be trusted to do what they need to do.
I love that. Individuals and human beings can be trusted to do what they need to do. And I think I agree with you that because we have operated previously in this kind of police state, it has made us lazy. It has caused us not to step beyond our boundaries. Soila, what are your thoughts? What's the one thing you are definitely carrying into 2021?
I'm really actually happy to hear what Christine and Evans have to say, because I'm on the other side of the spectrum where I'm happy that people have realized that things can happen online, because as an individual, maybe it's because I'm an introvert or whatever other reasons might be, but I really thrive from home. Like, I can do everything, if it's studying, if it's work. And the world up till now at least has been oriented around going somewhere physically and doing the thing and then going back home. And so I've really thrived both with, the fun things like, festivals and events are now online, but also work related things. So for example, even an event like this, maybe before 2020, such events are like 90% physical, and I wouldn't be able to take part because I'm currently studying abroad. So I would just see people talking about it online but not be able to join in. But now I can join in as an audience member, as a speaker, but then also for my journalism as well. Journalism thrives on, individual interaction, face-to-face interaction with, with sources and even with people you're collaborating with. But now we've been forced to rethink how to connect with our sources and with each other online. And it goes back to this emotional intelligence thing where it's now harder, it's always easier to, read the room when you're with someone physically, but now you're being, sort of forced to just, have this setup where you're just in your room or in your, in your living room, and you're just looking through a camera, and you still have to be able to make that connection. So it's actually improving my skills as well to be able to do that at all. But for me, going into the future, I am excited that people have now seen things can work online, and now let's just get better at it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Soila. It's definitely going to be a younger person's take that, come on, guys, get with the program. We're really happy to finally be with you in this idea of working online. I think for me, I actually love working from home. It has meant that I can interact with my children a lot more. Now, to be fair, I don't like them being at school from home. No thanks. I would rather they go back to school, but I'm very happy to work from home myself. Soila, let me remain with you. The term the future of work has been bandied around quite a lot, especially this year. What exactly does this term mean to you? What does the future of work mean to you?
The first thing I think of when I hear the words future of work is automation, artificial intelligence, this idea that we're all going to be made redundant in the next few years because a machine is going to be able to do our job better or faster, or any of those things. And I mean, that's quite doom and gloomy, which I guess it is realistic because the world is moving quite fast technologically. But then it's also exciting on the other hand, because this is like uncharted territory. You can't ask anyone how you should prepare, because everyone is sort of in this together and we're all just seeing how things go. But for me, I think it comes down to, or what the pandemic has really made clear to me, is that it comes down to what skills you're known for specifically and how you can connect with people based on those skills. So what are you known for? Like, when people hear your name, what do they attach you to? Because social media has made us be able to connect with the whole world, which is like billions of people. But then what can people attach to your name? I think if people can take advantage of that instead of seeing it as a downside, that would be a great thing. And people like learning specific skills that are not the usual, learning how to code or whatever. It's even more of just this emotional intelligence thing. because as you mentioned at the beginning, it's really at the core of what most of us do, even if we don't think about it much. But if we like sort of reorient ourselves in that direction, which is kind of ironic because, you know, you think of, you know, AI and all that, and it's very cold and machine-like, but then it then is forcing human beings to become even more human because a machine can never do that. And so it's really pushing us towards being very empathetic and being able to interact with each other at a better level. So in a way, I'm choosing to see the optimistic side of things, and that's what I'm now thinking of when I think of future of work.
I love that. What has the pandemic made clearer to you about your own future of work?
I would say that I call myself a general internet person. Other than my journalism, I do several things online on the usual platforms, though I'm not on TikTok, so don't ask me anything about that. I have no idea. But, you know, I have a YouTube channel. I have a blog. I generally interact with people a lot online. And it's really made me start thinking of taking those other things seriously, because having this brand identity, I guess you could call it, is really going to work out in the future. Because also the uncertainty of the future means that the more things you can do, the better. Of course, all these things I do are around media and communications, but media and communications is so large. So I'm taking advantage of that and just trying to be able to do multiple things which feed into each other. So for example, the work that I do on my YouTube channel, which is mostly for fun, was able to convince a media house for me to do a video story. And I'm not a video journalist. I mostly do writing. I mostly do my journalism through writing. But that work that I was doing on my YouTube channel for fun actually made the media house sure that I could actually speak on video. And so that's not something I had expected to happen, but now I'm seeing how all these things can feed into each other. And so I'm really taking this idea of side gigs on the internet more seriously, and who knows how else they can interact in the future.
Thanks, Soila. I think what I'm hearing so clearly from you is that in order to be better prepared for this future of work, we need to be flexible. We need to be the kind of people who can shift and not have the mindset that says, this is the way I've always gone, this is the way I've always done things. Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you very much for sharing that. Christine, let me come to you. Working from home has had some advantages and disadvantages. And, you know, so does the deluge of online meetings. What are some of the effects of online working that you are seeing for yourself and for your network?
You know, for over 100 years, for somebody like Evans in HR, I'm sure he's had it over and over. Women and of course moms saying that we want to have flexible time, we want to be closer to our children, we want to get home on time and stuff like that. Then came COVID, and it has given us a first-hand experience of what we were asking for. You just said it earlier, Mucha, that your kids are in the other room. I can tell you what Yobakumi has helped me with right now is my children are exported to another house just so we can have this peaceful meeting. So things have really changed. The advantages of us being able to work online as moms in business, as women in business, or even for people who are employed who are now working from home, is that we can be closer to our children. I think it's then just how you manage your home and then manage yourself professionally when it comes to your work and what you do in the home space. So the advantage number one has been, it's made it possible for us to be closer to our children, closer to our family members. Our dream has come true finally, 100 years later plus. Number two, the other advantage has been, you know, when it comes to commuting and the way it can be stressful and taxing, and you're sitting in traffic and you're thinking, oh, my government, that of course is something that has reduced. So we are grateful to be at home. That is definitely another advantage. And for people who like to work and they are, like I normally say I'm a work addict, and I'm proud of it. I am a mom in business who's a work addict, and not many moms will say that. Working from home has made it possible for me to extend my working hours into unbelievable and ungodly hours, But I'm still trying to seek therapy. I am joking. Find ways to just get balance on how, spend enough time with my family, spend enough time on my business. But anybody in business will tell you, we don't have 24 hours. We work 27, 28 hours. So anytime that we can find ways to sneak in a few hours, we'll always be working. So then over time, just trying to be more conscious that it's not always about work and striking a balance between family and work. So yeah, online has made it possible for us to be able to be flexible. But then also setting boundaries has been very hard because somebody will ask you to join a meeting at 5:30. And Evans tells us that we need to be out of the office by 5. But then how do you tell somebody that beyond 5 o'clock, excuse me, it's my family time, it's my personal time, that I don't work beyond 5? So I think now it's that time that we need to find a way to set boundaries. I don't know if HR are going to do some form of conference and come up with new ways, new policies where, even in the workplace, that beyond 5, nobody's inviting you for a meeting. At 8 p.m., somebody's inviting you for a meeting. Or you're trying to have a meal with your child, but you're one side of your earphones on your ear because you're in a meeting and of course your camera is off. I think we just need to find a way to strike a balance as professionals.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Christine. I think you bring up a really important point that the lines between work and life have become blurred. And it is really important for us as individuals to find that balance. And I'd like to imagine that many of us are carrying into the new year some of the things that we are doing now. Evans, you spoke earlier about the fact that as a bank, Standard Chartered has had for a long time these options to capitalize on the flexible working, and individuals haven't necessarily. But now that they have tasted and seen, more people will be working from home, which means that more people are going to have to figure out how to find that balance. I want to ask you another question, but maybe before I ask you that question, Evans, what are your thoughts on that idea? This idea that, Christine was talking about the struggle of finding balance and the meetings that come out of office hours, but now do you really have office hours? What are your thoughts on that?
And before I even talk to that point, Christine, one of the things that I'm trying to do is to get a side hustle. I want to be a therapist and a shrink. I hope you can be my first client. So, and we can treat overworking. The reality is I don't think we will have a hard and fast rule on what we call work-life balance. I have been an advocate for a long time now. In fact, at some point, I sounded like a broken record. I kept saying, guys, there is nothing like work-life balance. I never realized that would be redefined to exactly mean that there is nothing like that. But you've got to define it. I think that's what I'm driving at. It doesn't exist out there as people would expect, that it's defined the way it used to be because of a contractual obligation of 8 to 5. That's the way we had defined it earlier. Unfortunately, even then, people still used to extend work beyond 5. They used to be called for meetings. Some of the work that I do, at times I wonder whether I should be paid for it. Is individuals now making the exact assertion that why did my manager talk to me off peak and off work hours? Why did they call me on a Sunday to tell me this? And well, I will struggle through it. I think where we are coming to is a world where it's becoming a bit moving away from a round world to a flatter world, and work has now been redefined from the activity of when it's done to the activity and the output of it. And as we go into that and get that into our DNA, a lot of what we call work-life balance will find its balance, will find its space. Because then it's Christine saying, okay, fine, I can't talk to you right now. I have my baby, but I'm more than happy to talk to you at 9 p.m. What do you think? And so on. So I think there'll be a bit of pain when we go, and that always happens when we are in a change management mode. Between now and before we get comfortable, the same way we got comfortable with the 8 to 5, we will have a bit of pain, but we will get there. And people will be able then to redefine that this works for me, this doesn't work for me. And of course, even as we proceed with this conversation, our organizations themselves will need to redefine from structures to policies and to what we view work as. That has to be put in perspective before we get comfortable with that perspective of work-life balance.
Thank you. That's great insight. Soila, I have a question for Evans, but this is an interesting conversation. I wondered if you had any thoughts on this idea of finding this balance, especially now, as Evans said, where we're moving away from this structure of saying, you work from 9 to 5. And, I think what I also heard you say, Evans, is that in a way there can be some benefit to it, right? Because it means as a mom, I can potentially go and watch my son's football match during working hours and then catch up on that work later in the day. Soila, do you have any thoughts before I come back to Evans on and move to the next question on this idea of work-life balance?
Yeah, actually, I do agree. Like, even before the pandemic, I was of the same mind as Evans, where I didn't believe there's anything like work-life balance. You create what works for you. So this whole idea of 9 to 5, I don't know that it's the millennial in me, I mean, as the resident young person or whatever, but this idea of 9 to 5, 8 to 5 has never worked for me. I'm a nocturnal person, so my brain turns on at like 7 p.m. So I'm used to not having the usual, hours that people thrive on. And so this switch during the pandemic has been absolutely excellent for me. It's like, okay, now everyone is on the same page as me. Let's do things. But I think because of that, I've had a bit of a head start with this thing of where is your balance? When are you comfortable with just telling people no? And not accepting everything at all hours. I was already on that track with a few of the things I do and a few of the people who are of the same mind as me that I worked with, and it's now becoming a skill that everyone has to get, just being able to put up your own boundaries. But for sure, it's changing, and I mean that power to just say no is going to become extremely relevant now, when people are going to be texting you or emailing you at all hours, and you just have to choose how to move forward. But for sure, it's a very interesting switch. That the world is moving from the 9 to 5 to something else that is being defined. But for sure, whatever it is, I'm sure I'm going to be happy with it, because as long as it's not 9 to 5, millennials are always said that we have these weird things that we want in the workplaces and whatnot, but now we might be at the forefront.
Fantastic.
Can I say something?
Yes, Evans, please jump in.
The perspective of change, and I insist on this, and we have very many examples out there. When I talk to my dad, the number of things that he will tell me of how they used to operate, what they used to do, are things that many times I don't agree with. My grandfather, from my maternal side, to date, still goes to the shamba with a tie. And he grew up with a strict British culture, and he has toed the line over the years. So today you have to ask him, why don't you remove your tie as you go to the shamba? And to him is a non-issue. And he has an exact opposite problem. If he sees me heading to the office without a tie, he thinks I'm not productive and I'm joking. When I think about those examples, I see us getting into the same space as we start thinking about what do we redefine as the new ways of working. It is going to be a bit painful. And in fact, even within this forum, some of the perspectives that I view is not what Soila or Christine views. But away from that, I wanted to paint a picture of also the emerging organizations. I work for an organization that has been in Kenya for 110 years next year. Now, to undo the 9 to 5, you realize the amount of work, yeah? You realize the amount of work that I really have to do. So it's really a bit of work that we really have to do. So the upcoming organizations like Solar, individuals coming up and doing their thing will be there faster than the rest of us in the formal organizations that have been there. But we have to catch up. And the third perspective is, as a country, I think we are also lagging behind some other countries in the world who have taken this a bit faster than we have done. But we are also catching up, and it's the right direction to move into.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you very much for your insights, Evans. I agree with you 100% that, change can be a painful process, but on the other end of the change, there is often a lot of benefit. As we think through this idea of the change we're going through, Evans, what skills do you think are necessary to thrive in this fourth industrial revolution that we talk about? And how can employees ready themselves for this future that has actually already arrived?
Yeah, we now have a term in Standard Chartered. We no longer talk about future of work. Anybody says that, you have to add the word now. We say future of work now. It's no longer in the distant future. And thank you for the question. I think from when we started this conversation, and you are spot on. What I think, and this is my opinion, is that we will need to step into more of emotional intelligence now, and I'll explain that later, more than into technical skills. But let me just put the balance. We will still need technical skills. And when I think about where we are moving in terms of the revolution into technology, which is a key driver and an enabler, it's not the only thing that's happening, it's just an enabler. We've got to start teaching ourselves where our clients, because at the end of the day, each one of us is serving a clientele, where our clients want to be. If it is, if we are talking about data skills and so on, which is becoming core as a technical skill, data and analytics, we still have to build that. And some of us will have to go back to school to be upskilled and be reskilled and learn something new. That still exists. But I am convinced that as we step into this new world of work now, the interpersonal skills need to be illuminated more. People will need to get into influencing. And for me, that's very, very core. Because now, as we said, we're already trying to influence, saying, how do I talk to my bosses to then work at 9 p.m. instead of 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., whichever way you want to look at it. Influencing skills, and we've got to start getting into that world. Influencing skills, collaboration, emotional intelligence, agility, and ability to change starts being at the core of what defines the new skill set that we are looking for. And I think from an attitude perspective, and to answer your question, especially on emotional intelligence, we've gotten to a world where now we have to ask the questions, why am I doing this, before you get the answer. The world previously was do this. It was directed. You were told that you need to do this. And nobody needed to give you a rationale why. In the bank, we just tell you, you count the cash like this, and you give the customer like that. And you don't give the rationale. We almost behave like our parents, where you say, because I said so. But now we are stepping into a world of rationale, where individuals have to know, why am I doing this? And for that particular reason, then emotional intelligence kicks in. Then you have to define a lot more. And even as we become less hierarchical within our structures, especially in the formal organizations, we will break down barriers of, I have to report to 3 guys further up, and we become a bit more flatter into, how do I collaborate with you? How do I work with you to make this project work, and so on. So I see, in quick summary, the interpersonal skills becoming more illuminated in the world, and we need to learn more on those skills going forward.
I love what you just said, this idea that these interpersonal soft skills need to be more eliminated. Evans, I just want to come back to you a little bit and look at this now practically. So we know that these interpersonal skills are more important. Where do I go as an individual? Assume I'm not working in an organization that does support my learning, and I'm an individual who's interested in learning. I'm putting you on the spot here, but do you have any tips on where I can go to be able to develop these skills that have become crucial?
One of the things that we also need to realize, Mocha, is even the learning institutions themselves now have had to quickly adapt and change. Some in Kenya still haven't. I know we still have the traditional degrees and and people are still talking about traditional perspectives, but many institutions have quickly changed. I mean, having this conversation today online is testament to that, because this is also part of learning, is that individuals have had now more opportunities to plug in and give their content online and teach people one or two things about interpersonal skills. I do not think the world is devoid of that content. There is loads of it. You just have to start understanding, what do I want to learn? But there are other formal learning platforms like Udemy and others that already have the content, and they have great content. I love listening to Udemy's content, and if you just go in there and you search whatever it is that you're looking out for, part of it is paid, of course. Again, they need to make a bit of money, but you start getting the perspective of the world, which for me is also very important at this point, to just point out the world where we thought that we can give a rationale that I am Kenyan and I can run away with this by giving poor service, by doing this, is long gone now. It's long gone. We've got to start stepping into a world mentality that says this is how clients want to be treated, and they can be treated in the same manner in Nairobi as they are treated in Panama, as they are treated somewhere in Asia, in Kuala Lumpur. That perspective has to be there. So hence, the learning channels and platforms that are a bit more international in nature, I would recommend those. But I would say this, there is loads of information on the internet around self-development, and I would urge, especially for us Kenyans, something, if you want quality, at times you might have to pay for it. Be ready for that. Be ready for that. Let's not cut the corners. If you want quality, at times you have to pay for it. So look out for those.
Fantastic.
And you will get them.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. I think I agree with you 100%. There is so much that is available online. And I think one of the lessons I have learned during this pandemic, and I think it's a lesson that remains real, is that your learning is now in your hands. Again, as we've shifted into this fourth industrial revolution, this idea of sitting back and waiting for your employer to be the one who will, make sure that you're improving in terms of your capabilities is a yesterday kind of mentality. The future today says you are in charge of your learning, and there is so much that is available online. Fantastic. Soila, I want to come to you, and before you answer this question, you can feel free to comment on the earlier conversation we're having about learning and what's available online. There's a lot of people who are out of work right now, and a lot of people who hate their work right now. What's your advice for being future ready as an employee, future ready as someone who may be self-employed? What advice would you give to those who either are out of work or those who actually find themselves in a space where they really hate the work they're doing?
I think my answer is in response also to what Evans has said, which is this idea that learning can happen anywhere, and it can also happen for free at times. And this, I think, I don't know that it's a Kenyan thing, but people really like being spoon-fed, if I can put it like that. So people really like the information coming to them as they sit, wherever they are. And for me, I apply for opportunities all the time, and so I'm already used to that, going to see who can I follow, where can I get this information, I'm interested in this, where can I find it? And now I think everyone needs to tap into that. So for example, I mentioned I have a YouTube channel, I blog as well. That's just me who decided to do those things because I saw the skills I'd be able to get by doing them. So for example, I wanted to improve my video editing skills, also my presence on camera. And for me, I learn by doing. And so I was like, what can I do to improve these things? Because if I say I'm just going to watch YouTube videos on how to use Adobe Premiere Pro or whatever the video editing software, I won't ever do that. But if I do it in conjunction with creating videos, then I know I'll have a reason to learn this skill. So it's also a way of figuring out what works for you, because if you're doing something yourself, it's so hard to self-motivate. People are always asking that question. How do you motivate yourself? How do you always, keep doing this thing? Where do you get that drive? It's just about finding the key reason you want to learn that skill and going for it. And so this idea of being, as a future employer, as someone who is in between jobs or has just finished school, or is just looking for the next thing, is this fear of, oh, I want to have this gap in my CV. But even as people always say, okay, do some volunteer stuff or whatnot. You can do that, but doing the volunteer stuff, you should find stuff that is actually upskilling you. Even talked about this idea of we need to reskill and upskill. You can actually find and combine, kill two birds with one stone. As you're upskilling yourself, you're also doing the volunteer work or whatever else, and you won't actually have that gap in your CV. As I mentioned, those things can feed into each other. Where I really never imagined that my YouTube channel would have anything to do with my employment, where an employer would see what I was doing on this end and be convinced that I could do this other thing. And so this idea of really tapping into just the internet in general, there's so much. Sometimes people ask me questions and I feel like just telling them, just search on Google, because truly everything is out there. I don't know, probably it's a very specific thing you've asked me, but that question you've asked me, just type it into Google. Uncle Google never fails you. So this idea of YouTube, someone in the comments, I think on LinkedIn has mentioned TED Talks. There's also the paid stuff like Udemy. There's LinkedIn Learning. It's all out there in various versions. So if you need someone who is excited, tell you can find someone who's excited, literally. If you need it as a podcast, it's probably a podcast. So there's really no excuse. And I think, I don't know, maybe you guys can tell me whether you notice this, but I don't know that it's a Kenyan thing where we really just sit back and wait. But the key thing, as someone who is waiting for employment or is in between jobs or is just getting to the job market, is that you really need to just take the reins and just steer the ship yourself and get used to doing that, so that even when those periods when you're not in employment, you still have something going on and you would never have that gap in your CV.
I love that. I love what you just said about grabbing the reins and taking control and steering the ship yourself. I really like that thought and that idea. Evans, let me come to you. In many organizations, we are thinking about what we're talking about, this idea that we are we're moving forward and we are going through periods of change. In many organizations, the leadership style is stuck in the 1950s. Has the pandemic caused a shift? And, tell us, what does the leader of the future look like?
It's just like a river. Some of the things that are happening to organizations, you either flow with it or it carries you. So there is really no option at all but to change. I think the definition of what a leader is, for me, is what first must change. We have in the past talked about leadership from a supervisory perspective. I see us getting into a world that does not define leadership that way. It's not about an individual who has been put in charge over you and a person who directs and tells you things to do. I think leadership in the new world, in my perspective, starts to look at how do I collaborate and how do I influence and how do I make my colleagues work with me to deliver a goal. That's what leadership should be looked at going forward. However, as you said, if you have these monolith organizations which have existed for so many years, it's easier said than done in terms of getting people to see that perspective. The loads of work that most of our organizations have to do will be on mindset shifts. Now I'm speaking Greek. Mindset shifts. That shift is difficult. And I keep saying this. When I talk to the bank and I tell people I am a culture enabler, and that's what I am. That's my job. And culture is difficult for us to get people to start looking at things differently and start acting differently. It is not a single day's job. It is something that takes time. It's something that needs time. So when we talk about leadership and the imperatives that people have to embrace as we change, one, let's recognize that it's going to take time. And as it takes time, we've got to have a backfill. And the backfill is possibly, in my opinion, is a learning experience. That experience, it has to exist. We've got to teach our leaders to start seeing things differently. We've got to teach them to be more collaborative. We've got to teach them to be a bit more agile. And in fact, one of the things that I have said over and over is agility is underrated. And we've got to really, really talk about it. And agility is not agility of, some people think of where you are working from. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about agility of the mind. Is for me to be able to see myself. Today, I do not consider myself as a HR director only. That's a role that has been ascribed to me. I consider myself as a leader in Standard Chartered, and hence I must have a fair balance between business outcomes, dealing with people, and the outcomes with our clients. I've got to have the whole perspective. And if there's an area that I am missing, it is my prerogative to go and study and learn it. I've got to get myself into that space. So the leader of today, tomorrow is not a HR director. And then we've got to start seeing it that way. It is the enterprise-wide enterprise leader who now defines outcomes for clients and then works backwards. Then how do I influence? How do I collaborate? How do I bring people within different teams then to deliver this objective? If we don't see it that way, then we'll miss the point, because we can no longer keep paying people. An organization will realize that quickly. The cost of paying a person to supervise another is too high to have. I think if I have to forgo any cost, that is one of them. I would want somebody to produce, and I pay them for that, the work they have done and that productivity, instead of paying somebody else to supervise to get that production. People will lead themselves into the near future, and as we put technology at the heart of a lot of what we do, then so much will be redefined in terms of production. So then leadership as well, as I said, really, really has to change. A leader then, in summary, I think must be able to be adaptable, must have the agility of mind, must be able to influence. Again, going back to the same soft skills, and to have the emotional intelligence and to lead others, not to supervise others, to lead others.
Mucha,
I
can I add
love
something?
that. Yes, please go ahead, Christine.
You know, every time I look at Evans and I see his tie, I remember HR and when I used to be employed. And actually, maybe Evans, I will need a therapy because I am traumatized looking at you from the screen, but I'm joking. because that is how HR used to look like, proper attire and all that, they are structured in a certain way. So back to the question of how the future of leadership looks like, I just wanted to contribute and say that our future leaders, even in business, employed, and people in HR like Evans, compassion, being compassionate, I think, is another top skill that as we work towards our EQ and interpersonal skills, we need leaders that are more compassionate. Gone are the days, like Evans say, that you drill down to somebody, this is what you need to do, and you need to do it by this time. How about you call me and ask me, by the way, I heard your mother is unwell. How is she doing? How are you today? I know we cut our budgets, but how are you doing? What are you struggling with? The other time is, that level of compassion. And I do hope that, the future of the workspace, I know there are people already who have, within their businesses, within the workplace, there's some level of compassion and humanity in how we do things and how we interact with our employees. That is something I think that will be a very good, because I think the essence of is just wanting to be appreciated, whether I'm in business, whether I'm employed. But then for me to feel like Evans really cares beyond my human being. And for people and they look at HR, that we're always talking about the generation that we cannot employ. Then if we are able to connect with them in a better way emotionally and get to understand them more, I think being compassionate or working on our compassion skills as leaders and people in business, or even in positions like Evans in HR, is of utmost importance.
Yeah.
Let me just,
yes, please.
Soila, before you come in.
Yes, please.
You raised your hand.
Go.
I want to agree completely with Christine, and we actually do have a term for it. It's listening, but we talk about being empathetic. I agree with you. The leader of today and tomorrow needs to inculcate that perspective. They must be empathetic. Remember, you are dealing with a workforce that you can't touch. It's a workforce that is distributed across the world. And your ability then to think what might be happening with an individual across in Asia who is 5 hours ahead of me, who is possibly at this point is going through Ramadan and so on. That skill is empathy, and leaders have to really inculcate that. I also talked about organizational acumen, but the other one that I wanted to just quickly add is the ability to learn. Leaders must be at the forefront. If anybody has to lead going forward, then they must have the hunger. It's nimble learning. They must put themselves in a vulnerable spot to learn. Otherwise, that's also how they drive others to get the appetite to learn. If you don't get to that level, a lot will pass you by. Soila, over to you.
I love it. I love this conversation we're having, and it's great when we're jumping in and adding to each other's comments. The conversation is running by itself. Soila, your thoughts on the same?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, this idea of being a leader, I don't know whether we need to come up with a new name for it, but people really imagine that, when I join organization X and then I work my way up over 20 years and then I get to have the word director in my title, then I'll become a leader. Or, when I start my own business like Christine, then I'll become a leader. But there's leadership, as Evans mentioned, is not really about those titles. It's about the particular traits that we mentioned, the compassion, the empathy, the willingness to change, the willingness to learn. And so I consider myself a leader currently. I'm a student, I'm not formally employed in any organization, but I do consider myself a leader because I am, in this sort of mindset where I'm learning as much as I can. I'm trying to build my emotional intelligence. I'm trying to, I'm doing all these things that I do consider constitute what a leader is. And, it's not just about having people under you that you're supervising. It's about what sort of a person you are in the workplace and how you deal with people. And so I urge all the young people listening to this that you don't have to wait to work your way up or to start your business or to do XYZ. You can actually begin being a leader in whatever space you are at right now.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Soila. We have a few comments and questions that have come through on the chat. I'd like us to look at them. But before we do that, Christine, the US military uses an acronym we may be familiar with, VUCA, to describe times like these: volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. How can emotional intelligence help leaders to successfully navigate this new normal?
To successfully navigate this new normal, I think for every leader in my, I know, employed doing your own thing like me and Soila, people in historical organizations like Evans. What's important right now is to know that being calmness is a superpower. In these volatile times that we can't understand, we need to find all the strength that we can to be calm. Because I don't know what HR is going through, but when he picks up the phone, say to talk to Soila, if he's going through something or maybe had a meeting with his boss, and some of this energy we can pass it on to the people who are under us or the people we collaborate with. So then if you're not able to manage our emotions, then it's impossible for us to thrive in this time. So number one, calmness is definitely a superpower that we need right now to navigate these volatile times. Number two, HR keeps throwing around, and even in the media, we see it a lot: mental health, mental health, mental health. What are we doing in that mental health space in the organization or in our organizations, even where we, people like me who are self-employed, even a time like this needs for us to work on our mental well-being. I know I did mention that I'm somebody who loves to work, but then I do know that it's important to carve out time to take care of myself. Could be exercising, could be 1 hour of Netflix, but then finding a way to self-manage so that I strike a balance and take care of my mental well-being, because at this point in time, a lot of us are struggling with burnout. Maybe an hour before this, Evans was, homeschooling through his phone or something, or calling home or something like that. Even you, Muta. So a time like this, when we are doing so much, we need to find a way to guard our mental well-being. So number one, being calm. Number two, our mental well-being is very important. And then number three, extending grace and kindness to everybody around us, the people who are under us, and even to ourselves. These volatile times need for us to be kind to each other, because I don't know what you're going through. I don't know in her business owner what she's going through. I don't know, Mucha, what you are going through. This, I think, needs us for us to and extend graces. When people make mistakes, don't be the first one to send an email in red and in caps. Pick up the phone and ask someone, okay, this could have been better done this way. The policy is this. Why did you do A, B, C, D, E? Trying to understand the other person's perspective before we come down to our emails and copying everybody and seeing the whole world. So that is what I think. Being calm, being kind, being gracious. These are skills we need right about now to navigate these volatile times.
I love it. I love what you've just shared, Christine, and I think it's so important. And, for me, who works in this space of emotional intelligence, I think that the pandemic has just made it so clear to me, and hopefully to you as well, that whereas in the past you may have thought emotional intelligence was a nice to have skill, it is an essential skill to be able to navigate these times we are in. I want to go to some of the questions that are in the comments. You're very welcome. Alice, it's great to have you online as always. I see your comments about finding that balance and how it is a struggle. And I think that, the conversation we're having earlier about how as an individual, you need to figure out that balance for yourself. Edith, it's great to have you online. Washeke, we hear you. The work-life balance struggle really depends on the nature of one's work. And I guess the more we can develop self-awareness, we can understand how we can find balance for ourselves. I have a question here from Ginda, who says, do you think that Kenyan employers are ready to provide employees with the opt-in remote work options when we return to normal office hours? What are your thoughts on that one? I want to tag in more than one question, and then we can answer them together. Oh, actually, that's the only other. The others are all comments. Yes, we will have the link to the recording. It will be on our YouTube channel, so you'll be able to watch this repeatedly at your leisure from our YouTube channel. So, who wants to dive in? Are Kenyan employers ready? Christine, you put your hand up. I see Evans also wants to comment, so I think everyone. Evans.
I fear what Christine is about to say, but let her go first because she's just about to desecrate the Kenyan employers.
For once, Evans, I'll extend grace to you and turn it on the other side. I think as a culture in this country, we struggle to self-regulate and what's the word? I think the word is to supervise ourselves. From primary school, from the time I was born, I've been supervised by teachers. When I was employed, I was supervised by HR. It's when I developed my self-awareness that then it became important for me to self-manage, to manage my time, to know what I need to do, when I need to do it, and why it's important. As a nation, I feel we need to find a way to change ourselves individually, even before we blame HR or want HR to be flexible for us, or even the nation to be flexible for us.
Christine, it looks like we've lost you. All right, Christine, we've lost Christine. We'll allow her to come back, but I think, okay, you're back. Go ahead, Christine.
Actually, back.
We lost you for a minute.
No, but just let me conclude with this point by saying, as individuals, as Mocha, as Soila, as as Evans, all of us and everybody who's tuned in, what are you doing at that personal level to manage yourself? That then, if I give you that task, that I know wherever you are, I don't need to put CCTVs, I don't need to put a tracker, that I know that you will deliver, because that's just the way you are. It's part of your nature. So we need to make it our own nature that we can self-supervise ourselves and deliver without being followed, and make, for people like me and everybody was a child here, that then we develop these skills in our children that they can deliver without being over-supervised. It's something we need to develop as a nation.
Fantastic. I love it. So, Evans, you were pleasantly surprised by her comments. Please jump in.
Thank you, Christine. Your first session is free. The thing is, I'll take a few comments on this perspective. Number one, direct question on whether Kenya employers are ready. I think it's a mixed bag. Some are not to provide that. And it's for a simple reason. Working remotely for an organization that had not invested in so much is costly. Getting your VPNs, getting your, whether it's productivity measure tools remotely, getting your, even the equipment themselves. Some people didn't have laptops. You need to invest in either a phone or soft phones. You need to invest in headphones and so on. It is a cost depending on where the organization is. So I think it's a mixed bag. So Ginda, the question you're asking, I think there are those who are ready, there are others who are not. And within that continuum, you will find some more ready than others. The second perspective on what you are asking is a myth that I want to demystify. I don't think there is anything normal going forward. The word normal office hours is gone. And I think we need to start embracing that perspective. It's history. We have already stepped into a new dimension that, and possibly one of the reasons why we are fighting it is because we are not ready. And that, granted, I would accept. But I think things have changed. And even for the clients that you serve, whichever industry that you're in, your clientele themselves now are bracing themselves to do things differently. It's easier when you carry your clients with you. It's easier, or when they carry you along. But I would rather you carry them with you. When they carry you, they'll be dragging you. and they might just get options on people who are doing it better. So that second myth of no more office hours, I don't think really exists. But I think you've also asked a very, very pertinent question on whether, fundamentally, whether in Kenya we are ready, and that's part of what Christine was answering. Culturally, are we ready to embrace the opt-in remote working options? And that's a third perspective. Christine has talked a bit about it. And the only thing I would add is we've got to start seeing this for what it is. A world movement, a client movement, a productivity movement. It's a lot of things together. Embrace what works for you in the immediate now, right now. What works for you now as you build the others up, because you will not get every content and everything ready for you. The example I have, of course, is for the institution that I work for, Standard Chartered. Globally, we have declared that we are going to work fully from home and giving people, we've just turned it around. And we've said we will now give people now the option to choose to work from office or to have a hybrid of the two, home and office. And at some point, we will make this very, very formal. But globally, we've made that announcement. And many banks are doing that. I saw a bank called DBS in Singapore the other day. They have already started thinking about giving one role to two people so that they can support the shift system. So I think even our own culture of how we view work needs to start shifting for us then to think about those options of remote working, because it will take very many iterations. As I said, it could be one job for two people. It could mean that we take less hours for the same job, and it means less pay. But of course, we have more time to do other things, and creating many of us to be agents of doing many other things instead of being employed and behind a desk like a fixed asset. So I think we've got to really, really start shifting when we think about that, Ginda, in terms of flexible work options. But finally, I think the options are there, and we shouldn't lose hope. The options are there. Those who are willing to invest and to take on these options, they really do exist.
Mucha, can I share a useless joke? Mucha, can you hear me? Oh, I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yes, please go ahead. We can hear you now. Yes.
A friend of mine was telling me that, during this time of homeschooling, that a lot of the kids are doing their classes on Zoom. She then walked into the child's room. She could hear people talking through the phone, through the device, but her son was inside the blanket, fully covered, as he listens through this class session. So, which takes me back to self-regulating and self-supervising, which is something we need to think about seriously, even for us as we ask people like Evans and the whole world to let us work from home. Right now, I'm holding my tumbler. You don't know what's in this drink, but we are still, during working hours. So, for example, what's in your tumbler, in your 10 o'clock, wherever you sleep? Number two, even just showing up for your meeting and your camera is on and you have a tie, I mean, it's a form of respect to the people that you're having the meeting with. So these are things that our children will eventually learn from us. And as we work from home, we are fully present. Our personal brand is just as powerful, the same way when I see my dad Evans, when he's doing his webinars and all that, but then our children can also start adapting what they see as true. But if at home our tumblers have, my favorite whiskey, which I'm not saying I'm having my whiskey right now, or that my camera is on, or that when I say I'm going to log in on time, I keep saying in the house I have a meeting at 10, but then I'm logging in at 10:20. So these are things, even at the home level, what we model for our children is what eventually they will come and do in the workspace.
Profound.
Very, very
profound.
Very, very profound.
Very profound.
Somebody gave me an example like that, and it's a while back. of a friend who used to work, I think, for the British Telecom, and it's many years back. And then I was also struggling with the perspective of remote working. And they told me that this lady, they used to interact with the company once. They give you a contract, you go in and they set you up on a phone and they give it to you, a handset, which you can fix in your own home. You get it, you signed your contract and you're gone. It was a contact center sort of a job. And she had a clear timetable of work. And she would work every day from 7 a.m. And at around 8:30, she stops working, drops her kids to school. 8:30, she comes back, works until 2:30, and then stops working, goes and picks the kids from school. At 3:30, comes back and works for another 1 or 2 hours. Every day without supervision. And it's a while back when I was getting this example. And the question I asked is, what would it take to get me, and I didn't look at others, me as a Kenyan who has to fear authority and supervision to just do that? Until we start getting to that level of self-management, and I love what you said, Christine, then we are losing the point, because then we will create other structures for supervision, we'll create other structures for tracking productivity, instead of just getting done with a job.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Evan. Soila, I noticed you kept wanting to jump in. So please go ahead.
I just want to add in that these ideas we're discussing, they're also putting us on the global competitive stage. So one thing is that whichever job we are doing, we always just either look at the people in our office and look at our friends and families and the jobs they're doing, and that's our own small bubble. But the world is huge, and we're now being forced to think of ourselves at that level, which is something people really don't think about. If I'm a journalist, if I'm a professional in whichever industry, how do I rank globally, not just within my country, within my organization, but these are the skills that will actually put you at that global level. The fact that you're able to have, you have a meeting at 10 a.m., you appear on screen at 9:55. Kenyans cannot even fathom that, I think, currently. But that's something that really, it's an online thing. And maybe I'm having this discussion when, I really need to end on time because Christine needs to go take care of her babies. Evans needs to jump on his next meeting, which I needs to do. So you can't afford to, okay, we'll wait for, 5 more minutes. 5 minutes has passed. We'll wait another 5 minutes, waiting for people. Just those small things really do make the difference. We talk of Kenyan timing, African timing. You really need to leave that. That's now not an option. We always get places 2 hours late and say, traffic. Now there's no traffic. So just those small things will really actually put you in the global stage, because now jobs are really accepting this remote idea, and you actually can get a job anywhere in the world. And that means that you have to be able to work at the world's level, and the world's level is very high, obviously, because there's billions of people. People have all sorts of intelligences, and those small things count. So at this stage, it should not even be thinking about, in terms of future employment, you shouldn't just be thinking about your own country, but global organizations, all the lovely organizations you've ever dreamt of working with, you might actually now be able to work with them from your home, but you need to have the skills to work there. And it's just those small things that count.
My mind just blown right there. We are now global. Ask yourself, how do I rank globally? Stop comparing yourself to your neighbor, but compare yourself to the world. I think that for me is such a powerful statement, Soila. We are looking at the time. I want to go back and have a look and see if there's any more comments, questions before we come to our parting shot. I see quite a few comments from individuals who are on. There's one individual on LinkedIn who's just reminding us that we can tune into TED Talks There are lots of videos there that can help. So that was in response to the question we asked earlier about where individuals can go so that they can learn. As you've heard from my panelists, as an individual, you need to take charge of your learning journey. So you can do that using TED Talks. Dorcas, it's great to have you online, and I'm glad that you are enjoying the session. And Ginda, thank you very much. There's a big shout out here to Standard Chartered Bank for embracing the work from anywhere. So kudos to the bank for doing that. Interestingly enough, I have an interesting relationship with Standard Chartered Bank. I am a client and they are my client as well. And I must admit that, it's not just hot air. This is an organization that has heavily invested in this idea of future working and in this idea that this future is here now. Fantastic. I don't see any other questions. So let me come back to you, my panelists. I'd like us to share your parting shot. I'd like you to share your parting shot as we come to wrapping up our session. And it's amazing to me every time we do this, how quickly the time goes. Can you believe it's 13 minutes to the hour? We've been together for almost an hour and a half. How optimistic are you about 2021 and why? How optimistic are you about 2021 and why? That is the parting shot. Happy to take whoever would like to jump in first. How optimistic are you about 2021? And in one sentence, why? Soila, do you want to go first? Since you were the one who was struggling to jump in earlier, sure. Let's give you the space to go first, and then we'll come to Christine and Evans. How optimistic are you about 2021 and why?
As a millennial, as an introvert, they say the world is extroverted. Whether or not you yourself are extroverted, but the world is extroverted. But as a millennial and as an introvert and as a journalist and as an internet person, I'm extremely optimistic for one reason: collaboration. I think some of our jobs, sometimes they are very individualistic and they thrive on that individualism where it's like you struggle alone and then you do this great thing and then you're known and you win all the accolades. But people are now realizing, Evans mentioned the job where they're going to give the same job to two people. This idea of collaboration is exciting for me because I love engaging with people. I love sharing ideas and coming up with a product thereafter. So that's going to be put at the forefront, I think, whatever industry you're in. And I'm extremely excited for that. I have already started. I'm looking to increase. So as a journalist, as someone who does stuff online, I can't wait for all those opportunities that are going to come forth from collaboration.
Fantastic. I love that. Collaboration is indeed the key word as we look at the future. And the amazing thing about collaborating is encapsulated in that African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Christine, can I come to you next? How optimistic are you about 2021 and why?
Mucha, allow me to pass on my slot right now to Evans because I would want this meeting to end.
Christine, we lost you for a second.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can, yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
allow me
can.
to give my slot, my few minutes before I come back to Evans, because I want to make a friend before the end of this meeting, and I have a therapy session that I need to claim. And in the spirit of empowering the boy child, I will let him give us go first, and then I'll go after him.
Wow!
I'm happy to take the slot. Happy to take the slot, Christine. We rarely are asked to do this unless we are paying, but it's to go first. The thing is, I am absolutely optimistic about 2021. And I have more than a sentence, but the reality is we will go through a storm. Businesses will be hit, have been hit. People have lost jobs. I think now we are edging to above 2 million jobs lost in the SME and the formal sector within the country, within the economy. people will, and that's a huge hit. If you think about it, we support 4 or 5 people. That's 10 million people affected livelihoods. There is a lot of issues when it comes to the COVID and the way it has hit people directly in terms of healthcare and those concerns. And coming into next year, we will see that storm. Why am I optimistic? It's because humankind will find solutions to these problems. And I think we will now start seeing the reason why we need each other more. COVID is teaching us to break down capitalism, that no matter how much money you have, you require the same oxygen as I would if I go to hospital with COVID. It doesn't discriminate. I think that perspective now needs to permeate so deeply, and I think it will. So I see humanity, and I see Kenyans showing up for each other. I see us now being more humane in the way we look at ourselves and others, and hence a perspective of moving together as a country. That's my optimism. As far as the workspace is concerned, I am heavily optimistic that we are creating a new world of ideas and skills. And we are creating a new platforms to learn. We are creating new jobs. We are creating new clients. And we are seeing a very fresh and different perspective than we have had before. For every job that we lose, 2 or 3 others will be created. And the challenge is for us to get ready. And the last part why I'm optimistic is because I'm Kenyan. I have no option but to be. We have gone through us. We have gone through us, and we have made it through it all. So I am optimistic as a Kenyan that will pull through. And those will be my many sentences to answer your question, which
I love it. Thank you very much, Evans. That was fantastic. So back to you, Christine.
Mucha, on a scale to 1 to 10, my level of optimism is at 11. I feel that the future is so bright, but it's all a matter of perspective. In this season of lemons, it is how you make your lemonade. Evans mentioned when he came earlier on in the meeting that he had just done some interviews. They were conducting some interviews. Somebody somewhere is thinking, wow, I mean, the future is bleak, there are no jobs, but somehow somebody got a job today. And there are people who've made money in this COVID season. So one, I think the future is bright. It's us to unlearn some things and see how we can upskill where we need to learn a few new things. Number 2, something that Soila said, the future is collaborations, because a lot of companies will not have a lot of money to spend in the near future. But if I have my half, say for example, I'm going into storytelling and Soila is excellent at YouTube, see how we can merge our skills. And instead of making 1 million each, we see how we can make 3 million together and divide 1.5. So I think collaborations will also be very, very huge. And finally, it's about being optimistic. It's just about being optimistic, because in the coming year, and I think the future of work is about you finding ways to set yourself up. Find a way to keep motivating yourself, because we are together in this, but you have to find your own ways to just find yourself, to pump yourself up and tell yourself, in this lemon season, I'll find every way to make lemonade.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much to the 3 of you. You have been fantastic, and this conversation has been amazing. I know that those who have been tuned in have really benefited. I see a comment from Peter who says, I've found that self-discipline and commitment have been key in maintaining and improving my productivity during this pandemic. And Miriam says, a light bulb moment, I need to supervise myself. So thank you so much for sharing your insights. It has been awesome to have you in this session today. And I know that we have had some key takeaways. I think for me, my key takeaways are these. The small things will place you in the global stage. Supervise yourself, self-regulate. I think for me, that was definitely a profound takeaway, that we need to measure ourselves globally and not just in Kenya and not regionally as we tend to do. Here in Kenya, we love to look at our neighbors and compare ourselves favorably, but we need to compare ourselves on the global scale. The second thing is EQ is a superpower that will help us to navigate through these volatile times. Each of you shared different elements of emotional intelligence. Christine, you talked about calmness, and Evans, you talked about agility, and Soila, you talked about this idea of collaboration. All of these are actually elements of emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is a superpower. And the last takeaway for me is that leadership isn't a title. Leadership is you showing up as your best self. And as a leader, you must be in the forefront of learning. Invest in learning for yourself. So those are my takeaways. I don't know what yours were. I want to thank each of you very much. Soila, thank you so much for being with us today. Evans, thank you so much for being with us today. And Christine, thank you so much for being with us today and making this conversation so rich as a result of your experience. So I want to release you at this time. Thank you so much for being with us on this event. Bye to you all.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So there you have it. We've come to the end of yet another EQ Lunch and Learn. Really delighted to have spent this lunch hour with you. Allow me just to share a few insights for your benefit. If this whole concept of emotional intelligence is important and interesting to you, I'd like to invite you to join our Facebook group so that you can participate in our weekly EQ challenge. On a weekly basis, we have an EQ challenge. Join our Facebook group. The link is just being shared with you right now. So join our Facebook group. On a weekly basis, we have a weekly challenge where we just look at how you can develop greater emotional intelligence. I'd also like to invite you, if you're an individual who wants to step into 2021 with confidence so that you can achieve your career goals, I'd like to invite you to our new online program, the EQ Superpower, the Self-Awareness Toolkit. It is a 3-week modular online program developed for professionals who don't want to let the failures and challenges and disappointments of 2020 spill over into 2021. If emotional intelligence is a superpower, I can assure you it all starts with self-awareness. So check out the program. It is an online program, 3 modules over 3 weeks. We'd be happy to have you participate. That is it from me. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been quite an honor to host you and to have my panelists as they have had a really insightful conversation. Don't forget that we have this event on a monthly basis. We will be skipping December. So we'll be back with the EQ Lunch and Learn in January. So watch our social media pages for the dates. We will still have our executive thoughts event, all right, in 2 weeks' time. And I'm really excited about the conversation that Leroy will be having with our leader. And so look out for those details as well. Thank you very much. And we will see you. We'll continue to see you online. Thank you, guys. Bye, and enjoy the rest of your day.